A lot of producers are making beats. They don't have formal audio engineering training.
I don't think it's essential. Some of the coolest shit I hear these days is like kids that have no idea what they're doing.
Fall Out Boy, Uma Thurman record, that was already a hit on its own. It was 2 times platinum, and then the remix comes out, and you co-produced the remix.
There's a dude named Tick who's an A&R at Red Bull, and before that he was the A&R at Warner Brothers that signed Wiz. I just kept a relationship with him. He somehow was working with Fall Out Boy to do that remix. Was how that came together. So it was really just sort of out of the blue, like, hey, you down to give this a try? And the other producer on that is another guy from Pittsburgh who just, I pulled into it because I felt like he kind of had the right sound for what that record was. So we worked on it together.
What was that process like? They sent you the session and you went to town on it?
Yeah, they sent me stems. They just sent me a folder of, vocals, guitars, drums, everything. I think I was using Ableton at that time. Yeah, and just started, taking things away and adding things and going crazy on it.
Here's another burning question. For that kind of scenario, or remix scenario, how does the publishing break down? They just give you an advance for the remix and that's that?
They just gave me a fee to do it as a work for hire and kept all the publishing, which was cool. It was actually a really good fee for a couple of days of messing around with a song. So positive Wiz got some cut of it, and there was a very brief pushback from me, and the answer was basically, well, you could take it out of Wiz's cut. And I should check before I say that, because there's a good chance that Wiz, broke off 5-10% of his cut to me. I wasn't mad at it.
Switching gears, a lot of producers are making beats. They don't have formal audio engineering training or the level of experience, and I think you have both. So do you have any advice to them as far as learning how to improve their mixing and their audio engineering talents?
I don't think it's essential. Some of the coolest shit I hear these days is like kids that have no idea what they're doing. Just because, they're not stuck in any sort of like template of it's got to sound like this or this, my snares need to hit this certain way or my, because I think everyone that's been doing it for a while, for better or for worse, I think you get stuck into those sort of modes of thinking whether you want to or not. And then the challenge becomes pushing through them and, challenging yourself to do something new. But some of these kids just sort of come out of the woodwork, jumping into this for the first time, trying it out, and just do stuff no one ever thought of. So I don't think the experience, especially the technical experience, is a necessity in terms of being creative and getting started in it. But I think as you progress and as you grow, particularly if you get to a point where you're Mike Will or somebody, where like you've got this run of big records and all of a sudden it's sort of up to you to make sure that all these records that you were lucky enough to get cut with such and such artist, it's your responsibility to make sure they sound great and that they, the vision is fully realized. And you don't want to leave that to some A&R who sits at a desk all day, or some random person that's just doesn't necessarily have a musical background, that's just a part of the process. You want to make sure you as the producer, in conjunction with the artist, are a part of seeing the vision through from the creation of the record to the way it sounds when it's finished and mastered. Learning some of that process, and the more that you can understand about that process, the better you're going to be able to go in and communicate, even if it's not you mixing the record, but you can communicate to the mix engineer, to the tracking engineer, to the mastering engineer, whoever, the sound that you're going for, and help them help you to get it there. So it's important to learn it, and it is, some of it's just a lot of like dry sort of technique stuff, but you got to sort of make yourself focus on it, I think, and learn it. But to not get it too confused with the creative process, because I think it can definitely hamper it when you're worried too much about how you're mixing something or how something is sonically when you're in the process of actually creating.
Speaking of worrying about sonics, do you have a favorite piece of gear, favorite VST right now?
Man, what have I been using a ton? It's so different for me because like as a tracking engineer, there's some hardware that I love. Like I bought a Sony C800 mic maybe 3 years ago. I love that thing, and it's every time it's just the sound that I'm going for. But then like as a mixer, I do a lot in the box. So I heavily use like UAD plugins, their 1176 emulation, their 1073 emulation. And then with production, it's really Ableton as a whole. I don't think there's one particular software synth that I regularly use. Ableton just as a tool in and of itself has really like just changed the way I produce over the last number of years, because I started off on hardware. So I started off on ASR 10 and then eventually an MPC. And then I was sort of, in Pro Tools trying to put beats together. So it was sort of a long transition to get to Ableton, but once I found it, just changed the way that I create. And FL Studio, for whatever reason, just sort of went by me. I think because I was always, as an engineer, I was always on a Mac, just never had a PC available to get started on it.
Moving forward, what's new for you? What's on the agenda for 2018?
Continuing to try and get tracks into the right hands and squeeze my way onto some of these projects, but also really, I have a couple of guys already in Pittsburgh that I'm working with, younger guys that are just getting started. So I sort of want to continue that, and also just start building things in terms of getting more producers involved directly with me, whether it's like a production company sort of thing or management sort of thing, and just, keep building things into more of a collective. It's always sort of been a collective, but just to take that whole idea. I get caught up in the music so much that I'm generally not 100% on top of like, this is the way I should be approaching things business wise. So maybe next year I'll get better at that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of producers 2018 resolutions. Well, hey, E Dan, we really appreciate you sitting down and giving a very honest interview and sharing your experiences. Thank you so much. Much continued success to you. How do people reach you online?
Man, just hit me on Twitter, Instagram. It's at IDLabs Music.
There you have it. At IDLabs Music. Much continued success to you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your experiences. Peace,
appreciate you. Peace.